Hey guys, it's Madison and welcome to today's little study vlog. So I've been back in the States now for about 6 weeks visiting my family for winter vacation. I will have to go back in about a week for spring semester, but while I am here, I am enjoying my time greatly. However, I knew that when I came here that I would be distracted by the busyness of life, living with 3 other people in the house and not being alone and not really being in my typical routine. So I knew that I would likely be doing very little to no language learning when I first got back. However, I didn't really expect that that would last for as long as it did last. Honestly, for about 6 weeks, I'd say, I didn't really do much language learning at all. I'd say that probably in January, I don't think I even hit 10 active study hours. So it definitely was a very, very chill, relaxed month. So that's what I'm currently trying to do, trying to get back in that kind of daily groove of almost every day thinking about, if not doing, active language learning. And what I found that typically works for me when I want to get back in the groove of language learning after a long period of very little activity or no activity is embarking on some sort of language project. Over the past week or so, I have kind of had a very, very small little language project to kind of get me back, even just having the slightest bit of energy to do language learning, and that was just doing a little bit of Mandarin and Japanese every single day. Not very much, like maybe 15 to 20 minutes of each. And I'm happy to report that for the past several days, maybe 4 or 5 days, I have been doing both of those things consistently. But yeah, for today's little study vlog, I want to continue those things, but I also want to kind of embark on a bigger little project. A bigger little project sounds like an oxymoron, so just a bigger project that involves Korean reading. I actually haven't done any Korean reading except for one day since I've left Korea. So it's been a long time since I've done any Korean reading. One thing I really want to work on this year is to improve my advanced Korean vocabulary, and part of that is through reading. And so what I'm going to do for this project is a little bit different than what I typically do for reading. Typically, I just read books. I don't really stop very much to look at vocab. I might, there's a word that I'm like, that word seems important and I don't understand it. I might pause and look up a few things here and there, but I'm not really ever doing much close reading, as they say, where you're actually actively looking up a lot of vocabulary and actually trying to study it in any way. Normally I just read, occasionally look up a word here or there, and then just move on, keep reading, don't ever look back at that word. So for this project, what I'm going to be trying to do is the complete opposite of that. I'm going to try to really slowly reread this book, and not only to look up every single word that is unfamiliar or just very vaguely familiar, but also to make Quizlet flashcard decks and actually study those every single day so that I can actually, remember those words for the future and hopefully recognize them as they reappear in the book, possibly in later chapters. So that is my overall goal. However, I am a bit concerned that I'm not going to be able to finish this before I leave for Korea again. But because I am going to be reading it so closely, I feel like it's going to take me a long time to actually get through this book reading in this way. So today I'm just planning on just trying this method out, seeing how long it takes, if it's going to be even feasible for me to continue it and finish it before I leave for Korea. So yeah, let's go ahead and start reading.
Why does my arm already hurt? Yeah. Are you kidding?
All right, popping in for a quick check-in on how things are going. I've done 2 reading sessions so far, each for 4 pages of this book. The main concern that I had was that it would take way too long and I wouldn't be able to finish this book before I left for Korea in just over a week. But it's actually going much more swiftly than I anticipated. Definitely a lot slower still than just reading a book without looking anything up. But honestly, there's not as much unfamiliar vocab compared to what I expected, I think, especially because this is a middle grade book and it mostly takes place at school. There's a lot of familiar vocabulary, just a few like adjectives and things here and there that are a little bit more unfamiliar or like vaguely familiar, or like, oh, I've seen that before, but I want to review it a bit more. And so those are the words that I throw into that Quizlet and review. But yeah, because so far it has been relatively quick and not a ton of words to look up, I think I am pretty confident that I can finish this first chapter tonight very easily. I have about 10 pages left. I've read 8 so far, and I think I can finish up those last 10 pages in like 45 minutes-ish. And so far, the number of unfamiliar words per page has been very, very, very manageable as far as like actually writing them all down and then reviewing them today. For the first little reading session, I did 4 pages with 19 new words, which is about 5 per page. My next reading section of 4 pages, there were 16 new words, so only 4 per page. And so 4 to 5 words of unknown vocabulary per page is definitely not bad at all, and definitely very manageable. So again, I'm very pleasantly surprised, very happy with how it's going. I am still picking up some of that really, necessary, more like literary vocabulary, more descriptive vocabulary compared to just normal everyday speech. And so I am happy about that. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up this first chapter tonight, hopefully, as well as kind of intermingling that with some Do Chinese reading and some Saturday Reader vocab review, because I don't want to drop those habits just because I'm picking up this new project. So let's get back to work. All right, so it's just past midnight and I'm gonna go to bed soon. But first, I wanted to close out this video with my final thoughts for today. First of all, right after I made the little checkup in the middle of the day saying how simple and easy this book was so far, the next little 3-page section that I read took forever. It took like 10 minutes per page, which is like twice as long as it had been taking me previously. There were like twice as many unknown words per page for that little 3-page section. It was very like descriptive few pages, and so it felt like I was just bogged down by a bunch more unfamiliar vocabulary, or at least just like vaguely familiar or not super familiar vocabulary. And so that was kind of a rough little section to get through, and I thought, oh no, is it going to get harder from here on out? Is this more the actual pace of this book? But then after that, thankfully, the last like 7 pages of the chapter were once again nice and easy and quick. In fact, that tough 3-page section actually took longer to read than the last 7 pages altogether. And so thankfully, it was just one little rough patch and the rest was pretty smooth sailing. As far as my totals for the day, I ended up spending 1 hour and 42 minutes reading, and the chapter was just under 20 pages, so that's definitely much slower than my typical not looking every single word up pace, but not too bad considering what I was expecting. And that 1 hour and 42 minutes also includes me typing out all the words and definitions into a Quizlet set as I read, so that counts for some of the time as well. In addition to reading in Quizlet making time, I also spent 34 minutes studying that Quizlet, and I think doing the reading in kind of small chunks and then studying vocab after every single chunk, like not only that one little section's vocab, but also all the previous vocab, really helped the 93 total words that I saved to be not too cumbersome. It felt like just little chunks that I was adding to the set each time versus like, studying 93 words all at once sounds really intimidating. So thankfully, by doing it in these small little chunks, it felt very bite-sized and manageable, and by the end, when I was reviewing all 93 a few times, it didn't feel, again, too burdensome or too intimidating. It was still manageable, even though it's a big number of words. In addition to this primary project, I did, of course, continue my streaks for Do Chinese and Saturday Reader. They're not long streaks, it's like 5 days now, but still, it's a small little streak. I ended up doing 33 minutes of Mandarin and 7 little minutes of Japanese. So altogether that adds up to 2 hours and 56 minutes of overall active study time. And because I split that 3 hours up into several little sections throughout the evening and night, it didn't even feel that long, especially since I was expecting this first chapter to take forever. I was very pleased with the fact that I was able to do all 3 languages in under 3 hours. And then as you saw, I went ahead and also spent a little time adding up my January totals and like transferring all my numbers from my physical notebook to my spreadsheet on Google Sheets. And wow, I was expecting already that my total active hours for January would be under double digits, like it'd be like under 10 hours. But wow, it was even lower than I expected. Like today studying almost gets up to the total for January. So that is how inactive I was in January. I'm not going to give away too much in terms of specifics. You'll have to wait for the Q1 progress report for that. But yeah, just little teaser for you. It was a very, very, very inactive month. And while it was a nice little break where I was, of course, you know, just relaxing, spending time with family, my dog, and all those things, it has been really nice throughout the past week or so to kind of finally get back into the groove of actually thinking about language learning on a pretty regular basis. So yeah, that is it for today's little study vlog as I try to get myself back into the language learning groove. Of course, stay tuned for the near future for the thrilling conclusion to this little project. My hope is that by the end of the book, the number of unfamiliar words will be significantly lower, or at least noticeably lower than the beginning of the book, because in theory, I'm hoping the author uses the same kind of descriptive words to describe things throughout the book. So the further I get, the fewer unknown words there will be. Hopefully, that's my theory. Again, we'll see if it comes true. Stay tuned. But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, annyeong.